I'm going to demonstrate how to set up the MRBP media for incubation so that we can read that as part of the INVIC series. So the M and the V portion of INVIC is for methyl red and the Valle-Rivera test. For both of these fermentation tests, we actually use the same media. We call it MRBP media. The difference is that after 48 hours, we add different sets of reagents. We have the MR test, for what we use the methyl red reagent. And if we're looking for the Valle-Rivera test, that is basically the detection of butanediol and acetoin after the fermentation of glucose, we're going to use a different set of reagents. For our purposes, they're going to be BPA and BPB after 48 hours of incubation. So you can see that it's a broth. Remember that we have to be careful with the broth because we can actually spill them. These are not screw cap tubes. We're going to aseptically transfer bacteria using a loop, and we're going to go from the stock into the broth, and we're going to transfer it to the incubator at 37 degrees. Wait the incubation period before we add the reagents. I'm going to make sure that I wiggle the loop in the broth to make sure the bacteria makes it in. I'm going to incinerate my loop again. You will not see a color change or anything happen except for maybe turbidity because there's bacterial growth after 48 hours. So the tubes are going to look something like this. So notice that they're no longer clear, and that's because there's bacterial growth. But now I'm going to add the reagents. So I have 4 tubes. These 4 tubes are going to be for E. coli and for Klebsiella pneumonia. Here is E. coli, here is Klebsiella pneumonia. They're labeled MR because I'm going to add the MR reagent to these tubes. Notice that there's a color to the MR reagent. It's just actually a pH indicator. And we're going to add 3 drops of the reagent. And we're going to look for a color change. I am mixing by tapping. And you can already see that there is a difference in color because we have a pink and a yellow. The pink is going to be the positive MR. The yellow is no change, which indicates that this organism was not able to do the mixed acid fermentation. Now for the VP test, we're going to add different reagents, not the methyl red, but the VPA and VPB. In your instructions, you have to wait every 10 minutes. You're going to vigorously tap the tubes so that you can mix, and it results. To accelerate the process, we actually add a pinch of creatine, and that makes the reaction move smoothly. So you add 15 drops of BPA, 5 drops of BPB. That was A. I'm going to add reagent B next. I'm going to tap mix, and then I'm going to go ahead and add our accelerant, which is that creatine. We always say that we add a pinch, about that much. Notice that I am not putting the spatula inside the culture. now the fun begins. We're gonna have to vigorously mix. Tap, 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 tap. And at some point, we're gonna actually have to tip them a little bit so that we actually can come in contact with the creatine powder. It may take a few minutes. The mixing helps because it makes it so that the molecules can actually start mixing in and bouncing onto each other. But you can start seeing a color change already. So I'm gonna show you how this tube is starting to turn red and this tube stayed yellow. This will be positive for BP, this will be negative for BP. So if we put them side by side, for E. coli, here you have your MR negative, BP positive. For Klebsiella pneumonia, you have your MR positive and your BP negative.